Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. These words, whispered in the shadows of 16th-century Italian courts, contain a financial secret that has built empires, toppled governments, and created unimaginable wealth. Yet this same secret remains deliberately hidden from you by those who profit most from your ignorance. You work harder than ever before, yet financial freedom seems more elusive with each passing year. You follow every piece of conventional advice about saving, investing, and building good credit, yet you watch others with seemingly no special talents accumulate wealth while you struggle to make progress. What you don't realize is that you're playing by one set of rules while they're operating by an entirely different playbook. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something about human nature that most people spend their entire lives refusing to acknowledge. Power doesn't flow to those who deserve it most, who work hardest, or who follow the rules most faithfully. Power flows to those who understand how power actually works. And in our modern world, money is the ultimate expression of power. The uncomfortable truth is that while you've been conditioned to believe that financial success comes from being honest, hardworking, and morally upright, those accumulating real wealth operate from a completely different understanding of human psychology. They know something about the nature of value, perception, and control that you've been systematically taught to ignore. This isn't about becoming dishonest or hurting people. This is about recognizing that the financial world operates according to certain unchangeable principles, whether you acknowledge them or not. You can either learn these principles and use them to your advantage, or continue being unconsciously manipulated by those who already understand them perfectly. Machiavelli's first and most crucial insight was the power of pragmatism over idealism. While you've been taught to focus on what should work in an ideal world, successful people focus relentlessly on what actually works in the real world. This fundamental shift in perspective changes everything about how you approach money, negotiations, and financial opportunities. Consider the last time you asked for a raise or tried to negotiate a better deal. Did you focus on why you deserved it, how hard you'd been working, or how much you needed the money? These appeals to fairness and need demonstrate a fundamental misunderstanding of how financial decisions are actually made. People don't pay you more because you deserve it or need it. They pay you more when they believe you provide value that exceeds what they're currently paying, and when they fear losing that value more than they fear paying more for it. Those who understand Machiavellian principles approach these situations completely differently. They focus on demonstrating their value, creating the perception of scarcity around their services, and positioning themselves as solutions to problems, rather than as people asking for favors. They understand that emotions drive financial decisions, and they know how to trigger the right emotions to achieve their desired outcomes. This brings us to Machiavelli's second principle, which might disturb you at first, but becomes liberating once you truly understand it. He taught that sometimes unconventional methods are not just acceptable, but necessary to achieve important goals. In the context of money, this means abandoning the naive belief that playing by conventional rules will automatically lead to conventional success. The system you've been taught to operate within was designed by people who benefit from your compliance, not your success. When you follow conventional financial advice, work within traditional employment structures, and accept standard terms and conditions without negotiation, you're playing a game where the rules have been carefully crafted to benefit others at your expense. This doesn't mean becoming unethical or harmful. It means recognizing that unconventional strategies often produce superior results because they work with human psychology rather than against it. While others are competing in overcrowded markets using the same tired approaches, those who understand these principles create their own markets and set their own terms. Think about the most successful people you know personally or have observed from a distance. How many of them achieve their success by following conventional advice exactly as it was given to them? Most likely, they succeeded by identifying opportunities that others missed, by approaching problems from unexpected angles, or by refusing to accept limitations that others took for granted. Machiavelli's third principle reveals why some people seem to effortlessly attract financial opportunities, while others struggle despite their qualifications. He understood that in human relationships, including financial relationships, the dynamics of fear and respect often matter more than the dynamics of affection and gratitude. This principle, when properly understood, transforms how you position yourself in every financial interaction. Instead of hoping people will reward your loyalty, kindness, or hard work, you focus on making yourself valuable enough that losing you would create significant problems for them. Instead of trying to make people like you, you focus on making yourself essential to their success. This shift requires abandoning the people-pleasing behaviors that keep most people financially dependent on others' goodwill. When you make your financial well-being dependent on whether people appreciate you, like you, or feel generous toward you, you give them control over your financial future. When you make yourself indispensable to their success, you regain control over your own outcomes. The most successful professionals understand this intuitively. They don't just do their jobs well, they identify crucial problems that only they can solve. They don't just provide services, they provide services that would be difficult and expensive to replace. They don't just work hard, they work on things that directly impact other people's success or failure. This strategic thinking extends beyond employment into every area of financial life. Successful investors don't just buy what everyone else is buying. They identify opportunities that others have overlooked or undervalued. Successful entrepreneurs don't just create products. They create solutions to problems that people didn't even realize they had. Successful negotiators don't just ask for what they want. They frame their requests as solutions to the other party's challenges. The fourth principle might be the most important and the most misunderstood. Machiavelli taught that successful people must carefully manage the image they present to the world while maintaining the flexibility to operate differently when circumstances require it. This isn't about deception. It's about understanding that perception shapes reality in human interactions, especially when money is involved. You've probably been taught that authenticity means sharing every struggle, every doubt, and every uncertainty with everyone around you. While this might feel emotionally honest, it often sabotages your financial success because it signals to others that you lack the confidence and control that people want to see in their financial partners. Those who understand this principle maintain a professional image that inspires confidence while handling their challenges privately. They understand that people want to invest in, hire, and partner with those who appear successful and in control. This doesn't require lying about your circumstances. It requires understanding that your personal struggles don't need to become public knowledge. This extends to how you handle financial negotiations and business relationships. While you might feel compelled to explain your financial pressures or justify your pricing based on your needs, successful people focus entirely on the value they provide and the problems they solve. They understand that desperation repels opportunities while confidence attracts them. The psychological principle behind this is that humans tend to unconsciously mirror the confidence or lack of confidence they observe in others. When you project uncertainty about your own value, others begin to question that value as well. When you project confidence in what you offer, others tend to accept that confidence as justified. Now we reach the core of the money trick that they desperately don't want you to understand. It's built on the principle of strategic ambiguity combined with calculated scarcity. Most people are far too transparent about their limitations, too eager to please everyone, and too quick to accept whatever terms are offered to them. The trick lies in maintaining strategic uncertainty about your alternatives while making others compete for your attention, services, or partnership. This means never appearing desperate for any particular outcome, never revealing all your limitations or pressures, and positioning yourself as someone with multiple options, even when you feel like you don't have any. This principle works because human psychology is wired to value what appears scarce and to want what others also want. When you make yourself too available, too accommodating, or too eager to accept any opportunity, you trigger the opposite psychological response. People begin to assume that if you're so available, you must not be very valuable or in demand. But when you maintain some level of selectivity, when you demonstrate standards and boundaries, when you show that your time and energy must be earned rather than assumed, something powerful shifts in how others perceive and treat you. They begin to wonder what others see in you that they might be missing. They start to compete for your attention rather than taking it for granted. This shift in perception translates directly into financial results. Clients who once tried to negotiate your prices down begin paying your full rates without question. Employers who once took your dedication for granted start offering better positions and compensation. Partners who once assumed you'd accept whatever terms they offered begin presenting more attractive proposals. The reason this works so consistently is that it aligns with fundamental principles of human psychology that operate below the level of conscious awareness. People don't typically realize they're responding to scarcity signals and social proof, but these forces influence their decisions nonetheless. Understanding this gives you enormous power in financial situations because you can consciously create the conditions that trigger positive responses from others. Instead of hoping that your merits will be recognized and rewarded, you can position yourself in ways that make recognition and reward much more likely. But here's what they really don't want you to understand about this approach. The most powerful aspect isn't in the strategy or tactics. It's in the fundamental transformation that occurs in how you see yourself and your place in the financial world. When you truly internalize these principles, you stop operating from a position of scarcity and desperation. You stop seeing yourself as lucky to receive any opportunity and start seeing opportunities as fortunate to receive your attention. You stop trying to convince people of your worth and start demonstrating it through your standards and expectations. This internal shift creates external changes that seem almost magical to those who don't understand the underlying principles. You start attracting better opportunities not because you become a different person, but because you started operating from a different understanding of your own value and how value is perceived and rewarded in the real world. The people who don't want you to understand these principles benefit enormously from your current approach to money and financial relationships. When you operate from desperation, gratitude for any opportunity, and fear of asking for what you're worth, you make it easy for others to extract maximum value from you while providing minimum compensation in return. Your willingness to accept whatever terms are offered, to work for less than your worth, and to prioritize others' financial interests over your own creates a system where those who understand these dynamics can accumulate wealth while you remain financially constrained. They need you to continue believing that hard work alone will be rewarded, that fairness will prevail, and that your good intentions will eventually be recognized and compensated appropriately. But these beliefs, while morally appealing, ignore the reality of how financial decisions are actually made in the real world. People don't pay you what you deserve. They pay you the minimum amount necessary to secure the value you provide. They don't promote you because you've earned it. They promote you when keeping you in your current position becomes more risky than advancing you. Understanding this doesn't make you cynical or manipulative. It makes you realistic about human nature and financial dynamics. And this realism allows you to operate more effectively within the system as it actually exists, rather than as you wish it existed. The transformation that occurs when you truly grasp these principles extends far beyond your personal financial situation. You begin to see how power structures operate throughout society, why some people and organizations seem to effortlessly attract resources while others struggle despite working harder, and how the narratives you've been taught about success often serve those who are already successful rather than those still trying to achieve it. You realize that many of the people you once envied or resented aren't necessarily more talented, intelligent, or deserving than you. They simply understand these psychological and strategic principles better and have fewer internal conflicts about applying them effectively. This understanding comes with both opportunity and responsibility. These principles can be used to create genuine value and build something meaningful that benefits others, or they can be used purely for selfish gain, regardless of the impact on others. The choice of how to apply this knowledge remains entirely yours. Machiavelli himself understood that power without purpose becomes mere manipulation, and that true strength comes from using these insights to create something larger than immediate self-interest. The goal isn't to become someone who exploits others' psychological vulnerabilities for personal gain. The goal is to understand these dynamics well enough to protect yourself from exploitation while positioning yourself to create and capture value fairly. The money trick they don't want you to use isn't really a trick in the traditional sense. It's simply an accurate understanding of how human psychology operates in financial contexts, combined with the wisdom to work with these realities rather than against them. When you master this understanding, you stop being at the mercy of economic circumstances and start becoming someone who can create favorable circumstances regardless of external conditions. You stop reacting to whatever financial opportunities happen to present themselves and start creating the conditions for the opportunities you actually want to receive. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it requires overcoming years of conditioning that taught you to undervalue yourself, to prioritize others' comfort over your own advancement, and to feel guilty about wanting financial success. But once you make this shift, the results compound in ways that seem almost impossible to those still operating from conventional understanding. Your financial future isn't determined by the economy, your current job, your background, or even your present circumstances. It's determined by your understanding of how value is created, perceived, and exchanged in human relationships, and your willingness to operate from this understanding rather than from wishful thinking about how things should work. The choice you face right now is simple but profound. You can continue operating from the conventional wisdom that keeps most people financially frustrated, hoping that your good intentions and hard work will eventually be rewarded by others who may or may not share your values. Or you can choose to understand and work with the principles that actually govern financial success in the real world, using this knowledge to create the financial reality you want rather than accepting whatever reality happens to be offered to you. Those who have mastered these principles aren't waiting for permission, recognition, or ideal conditions. They're creating their own opportunities, setting their own terms, and building their own financial futures based on their understanding of what actually works rather than what they've been told should work. The decision of which path to take is entirely yours. But now you know that there is indeed another path, one that those who benefit from your current approach would prefer you never discover. Consider how this knowledge changes everything about your daily financial interactions. When you walk into your next salary negotiation, you won't be thinking about what you need or what you deserve. You'll be thinking about the value you provide and how losing you would impact their operations. When you price your services, you won't be calculating based on your expenses or what seems fair. You'll be considering the problem you solve and what it would cost them to solve it differently. This shift in thinking reveals why traditional financial advice often fails to produce extraordinary results. Most advice assumes you're operating in a fair system where merit is automatically rewarded and hard work inevitably leads to proportional compensation. But the system isn't designed to be fair. It's designed to extract maximum value while providing minimum compensation. Understanding this isn't cynical, it's realistic. The psychological research behind these principles is extensive and clear. Studies consistently show that people assign higher value to things that appear scarce, exclusive, or in demand. They're more likely to want something when they believe others also want it. They respect boundaries more than they respect accommodation. They trust confidence more than they trust vulnerability. Yet most people operate in direct opposition to these psychological realities. They make themselves constantly available. They accommodate every request. They share their struggles and uncertainties freely, and they accept whatever terms are offered without negotiation. Then they wonder why their financial progress is so slow, despite their considerable efforts. Those who understand Machiavellian principles don't fight against human psychology. They work with it. They create scarcity around their time and attention. They maintain boundaries that others must respect to access their value. They project confidence even when facing internal challenges. They negotiate from positions of strength rather than need. This approach requires overcoming deeply ingrained conditioning about what it means to be a good person. You've been taught that wanting more is greedy, that setting boundaries is selfish, that negotiating aggressively is mean. This moral programming serves those who benefit from your compliance, not you. The truth is that advocating for your own financial interests isn't immoral unless you do it in ways that genuinely harm others. Creating value and insisting on fair compensation for that value benefits everyone involved, Building wealth through understanding human psychology and market dynamics creates resources that can be used for positive purposes. Moreover, when you understand these principles and use them effectively, you often end up in positions where you can help others who are still trapped in conventional thinking. Your success creates opportunities to mentor, invest in, and support people who are where you used to be. Your wealth becomes a tool for creating more wealth and opportunity in the world. But this positive outcome only occurs when you first master these principles for yourself. You cannot give what you don't have, and you cannot teach what you haven't learned. The airline safety instruction to put on your own oxygen mask before helping others applies perfectly to financial success. You must first secure your own financial foundation before you can effectively help others build theirs. The resistance you feel to these ideas is itself part of the conditioning that keeps most people financially constrained. You've been taught to feel guilty about wanting more, uncomfortable about negotiating aggressively, and ashamed of using psychological insights to your advantage. These feelings aren't natural. They're programmed responses designed to keep you compliant. Breaking free from this programming requires recognizing that your financial success doesn't diminish others' opportunities. It often creates them. When you build wealth, you create jobs, investment opportunities, and economic activity that benefits your entire community. When you negotiate better terms for yourself, you set precedents that help others negotiate better terms as well. The compound effects of understanding these principles extend far beyond immediate financial gains. As you build wealth and influence, you gain access to better opportunities, more powerful networks, and increased leverage in all your relationships. Success breeds success because it provides the resources and positioning necessary to pursue even greater success. This upward spiral is exactly what those who already understand these principles don't want you to experience. They benefit from a world where most people remain financially dependent, where competition for good opportunities remains limited to those who already know how the game is really played. Your awakening to these realities represents a threat to their monopoly on this knowledge. When more people understand how wealth is actually created and accumulated, when more people refuse to accept inadequate compensation for valuable contributions, when more people start negotiating from positions of strength rather than weakness, the entire dynamic shifts. This is why these principles aren't taught in schools, aren't discussed in polite society, and aren't included in most financial advice. They're too powerful, too effective, and too disruptive to existing power structures to be widely shared. But you now possess this knowledge. What you do with it will determine whether you continue struggling within the constraints of conventional thinking or break free to create the financial reality you actually want. The choice is yours, but now it's an informed choice based on understanding how the game is really played, rather than how you've been told it should be played. The money trick they don't want you to use isn't just a strategy. It's a complete transformation in how you approach every financial interaction for the rest of your life. And that transformation starts with your very next opportunity to apply these principles instead of continuing to operate from conventional wisdom that serves others' interests more than your own.